fans. How's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast. And here I am on YouTube talking about UConn tonight as the UConn Huskies men's basketball team. Since 1999, they've won 5 championships in men's basketball, which is more than any other men's basketball program in the nation during that time. Now, under former head coach Jim Calhoun, Connecticut sent their fair share of talent to the NBA as he became one of college basketball's premier brands. Now, UConn's return to the Big East a couple of years ago help this basketball program get back on track as we saw what the tail end of their time in the American Athletic Conference was for them, and things would come full circle for the Huskies last March when they got it going in the NCAA tournament, and of course in April of last year they were able to cut down the nets as national champions. But even though that the Huskies are currently the number one team in the nation, to me, it feels like, this team is somewhat flying under the radar. And, we've seen so many ups and downs in the rankings this year, which is to be expected for a lot of reasons. But, the steadying control or the steadying factor, if you will, has been Connecticut. And in the process, they're looking to do something that they've never been able to do in school history, which is to repeat as national champions. Now, 3 times under Calhoun, Connecticut was eliminated in the second round of the NCAA tournament the following year after they won it all. And for good reason, because, when we've seen for the most part with the UConn teams, when they win it all, they have some key guys that leave school early or graduate and go on to the NBA draft. Now, one case in particular where I thought that, Connecticut was poised and had the talent to get back to the Final Four was 2005. They had a very deep team that year, but they lost in the second round to NC State in the tournament. Then, the same was the case after they won it all under Kevin Ollie in 2014. A lot of, the team wasn't the same, and then, they didn't even make the NCAA tournament in 2015. But after winning it all last year, will things be different this time around under head coach Dan Hurley and his squad from Stores? I say this because, you look at Connecticut this year, they lost their top 2 scorers from last year's team, Adama Sanogo and Jordan Hawkins. And then on top of that, Andre Jackson, their best perimeter defender, decided to leave school early as he's now playing for the Milwaukee Bucks. But even with all of that said, right now we're talking about a Connecticut team that's 22 and 22. They've won their last 12, and the only 2 teams to beat them this year, they lost by 4 points in Lawrence to a very good Kansas Jayhawks team, a team that won the national championship a couple of years ago. And then they got blown out in their Big East opener in Newark, courtesy of Seton Hall. And since then, Connecticut has been on a roll. They're 22 and 2 overall, excuse me, 12 and 1 in the Big East. And this team is looking like they have the potential to do some damage next month in the NCAA tournament. First and foremost, they've got to stay healthy. They got to keep the big man healthy. And I'm talking about Donovan Clingan. Of course, Clingan came off the bench last year, spelling Sonogo. He's had some injuries this year, but nonetheless, when he's been out there, you're talking about a guy that's, giving him more than 12 points, 6.5 boards, a couple of blocks per game. And then at the end of the day, when you're more than 7 feet and you have the wingspan that he does, you just clog up, space defensively in the paint. And then on top of that, there's not a lot of guys in the nation that can stop him close to the basket. Not a lot of teams have a big man that could go toe to toe with a guy like Donovan Clingan. That's going to be important for Connecticut as they look to get back. A lot of depth on this team. You got the likes of Tristan Newton, Alex Caravan, and Cam Spencer, just to name a few. And then when you think about this Connecticut team, they're getting back or they've gotten back rather to what they were under Jim Calhoun, in my opinion. Because when you think about Jim Calhoun and the program that he built at Connecticut, it was all about the fundamentals, and that's one thing under Dan Hurley. You better know your fundamentals if you're going to play ball for him in stores. And you look at it right now for this UConn team, they have the top defensive team in the Big East. They have one of the better offensive teams in the Big East as well. And that right there is a big reason why Connecticut is the top dog right now, no pun intended, in the Big East Conference. But it's stretch run time for these UConn Huskies as we're here in mid-February. And you look at it, they're at DePaul tomorrow night. They're going to be heavily favored over a very bad DePaul team. But they got Marquette at home this Saturday. Marquette's currently ranked fourth. They play Marquette two times before the regular season ends, and then there's a possibility of them meeting again next month at the Garden in the Big East tournament. They've got the rematch with Creighton next Tuesday. And that was a good game that UConn distanced themselves from Creighton late when they met last month. So that's going to be interesting to see the rematch right there. They've got Villanova. They finish up at home against Seton Hall, a team that took them behind the woodshed, if you will, to begin the regular season. And then they finish up their regular season on the road at Marquette and then at Providence. And Providence, of course, I know they've been dealing with some injuries, but nonetheless, the Friars do have themselves a good basketball team. But nonetheless, for Connecticut, they clearly right now they got a lot of momentum going for themselves. They want to keep that momentum going as they head to New York City next month for the Big East tournament. And the Garden has basically been UConn's home away from home. We saw them go down there and take care of their business against St. John's a couple of weeks ago. And of course, the Connecticut folks, they love to come down to the city. They love to show support for their Huskies, and I think they'll be out and in full effect next month once again at the Garden. And speaking of homes away from home, the Huskies are looking to get to the Barclays Center in Brooklyn for the first two rounds of the NCAA tournament. That's going to be big for them to stay in that region and get the East region overall. Why? Because the East Regional this year is in Boston, and if I guarantee you, if UConn gets to the regional, you're going to have a lot of people from Storrs, Hartford, all over the state of Connecticut show out and show love for that team. And it would be interesting. And the reason why I bring it up is because each time that Connecticut has gotten to the Final Four, with the exception of one instance, okay, uh, when they uh, when they won the national championship under Kevin Ollie, they did it coming out of the East at Madison Square Garden, which again is their home away from home. But all the other times they were coming out of the West. So, and of course, when you think about Big East teams over the years, they love the West region. But nonetheless, the way that things are playing for Connecticut right now, it looks like they will be coming out of the East region, or at least be in the East region, with a chance to come out of it to get to the Final Four. Dan Hurley has his finger on the pulse of this team. And it's very important because, when a team wins a championship, regardless of the sport, you got to work harder to get back. Why? Because, you lose guys. Then on top of that, everybody's telling you how good that you are. And sometimes it could be tough for a coach to keep that focus of his team. But credit to Dan Hurley. He has done a tremendous job of that this year. He continues to recruit players that fit his system. And this is why UConn has gotten back to being a national brand. So you look at it right now, UConn's got a pretty good shot to get to Glendale for the Final Four. Again, like I said, you always have to factor in injuries. They got to stay healthy. Then on top of that, let's see what their bracket looks like once they get to the NCAA tournament next month. But so far, so good for the Connecticut Huskies. They've basically passed almost every test that they faced this season. And again, going into Lawrence and only losing by four, that could be a moral victory because Allen Fieldhouse is not an easy place for opponents to play over the years. And then, like I said, they got taken behind the woodshed courtesy of Seton Hall to begin their Big East slate. But since then, The Huskies have been rolling, and they want to keep on rolling into next month and possibly rolling into the month of April once again. So, folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it'll be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now, you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.